The evening air was cool and still when Park Jun-ho walked through his cornfield. He did this every night after dinner, checking on his crops before the sun went down. The tall corn plants rustled softly in the gentle breeze, their green leaves, whispering secrets to each other. Jun-ho was a quiet man with tired eyes and strong hands. He had worked this farm for 8 years, ever since he came to the colony world of New Busan. His wife had died 3 years ago, leaving him to raise their daughter Nari alone. The farm was their life now, their home, their future. He was thinking about tomorrow's work when he saw the strange orange light in the sky. At first he thought it might be a meteor. They were common on New Busan, beautiful streaks of light that burned up in the atmosphere, but this light was different. It moved too slowly and it was getting bigger. Jun-ho stopped walking and watched the light fall toward his farm. His heart began to beat faster. This was not a meteor. This was something else entirely. The object crashed into his cornfield with a sound like thunder. The ground shook under Jun-ho's feet and he stumbled backward. Smoke rose from where the thing had landed, about 200 meters away from where he stood. The smell of burning metal filled the air. For a moment, Jun-ho just stood there staring at the smoke. His first thought was to run back to the house and call the authorities. Colony ships sometimes had accidents. Maybe someone needed help. But then he remembered his daughter. Nari was in the house, probably doing her homework at the kitchen table. What if this was dangerous? What if there was radiation or toxic chemicals? Jun-ho pulled out his comm device and tried to call the emergency services. The device showed no signal. That was strange. The communication towers usually worked fine in this area. He tried again, but still nothing. He looked back toward the crash site. The smoke was getting thicker, and he could see a faint glow through the corn plants. Something was definitely burning. If someone was hurt in there, they might not have much time. Jun-ho made his decision. He ran back to the house quickly and quietly. Nari was indeed at the kitchen table, bent over her math homework. She looked up when he came in. "Dad? What's wrong?" she asked. Nari was 8 years old with bright, curious eyes, just like her mother's. She was smart for her age and always noticed when something was different. "I need you to stay inside tonight, okay?" Jun-ho said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Lock the doors and don't come out until I get back." "Where are you going?" Nari stood up, worried now. "Something fell in the field. I need to check if anyone needs help." Jun-ho went to his closet and pulled out a heavy flashlight and his old medical kit from his military days. "If I'm not back in 2 hours, use the emergency radio to call for help." Nari nodded seriously. She was used to taking care of herself when needed. Life on a frontier farm had taught her to be independent. Jun-ho kissed the top of her head and left the house. He walked quickly through the corn toward the crash site, his flashlight beam cutting through the growing darkness. The smell of smoke was stronger now, mixed with something else he couldn't identify, something sharp and metallic. When he reached the crash site, Jun-ho stopped and stared. The object was not a human ship. It was smooth and curved, made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to glow with its own light. It was about the size of a small transport vehicle, but the design was completely alien. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing softly blue in the darkness. Part of the ship was cracked open, and smoke poured out of the opening. Jun-ho could see sparks inside, and he heard a sound like electrical systems failing. But there was something else. A soft sound, almost like breathing. Jun-ho stepped closer to the crack in the ship's hull. He shined his flashlight inside and gasped. There was someone in there. Someone who was definitely not human. The being was tall and thin, with pale blue, skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her face was delicate and beautiful, with large eyes that were currently closed. Long silver hair spread around her head like water. She wore clothes that looked expensive, made of materials Jun-ho had never seen before. She was unconscious and there was purple blood on her forehead. Her breathing was shallow and quick. Without thinking about the risks, Junho reached into the ship and checked for other injuries. Her left arm was bent at a strange angle, probably broken. But she was alive. The ship made a loud crackling sound and more sparks flew from the damaged systems. Junho realized the whole thing might explode soon. He had to get her out of there. Carefully, Junho lifted the alien woman from the wreckage. She was lighter than he expected, and her skin felt cool to the touch. He carried her away from the ship and laid her gently on the ground in a clear area between the corn rows. He knelt beside her and opened his medical kit. The supplies were basic, meant for treating cuts and broken bones on the farm. He wasn't sure if they would work on an alien, but he had to try. Junho cleaned the cut on her forehead with antiseptic. The purple blood stopped flowing, which seemed like a good sign. He used a small scanner from his kit to check her broken arm. The bones were fractured but not shattered. He could set it, but she would need proper medical attention soon. As he worked, Junho found himself wondering who this woman was. Her clothes looked rich and important. The crashed ship was clearly advanced technology, far beyond anything humans had built. Was she some kind of diplomat? An explorer? A refugee running from something dangerous? Behind him, the alien ship finally gave up. It made one last crackling sound and went dark. The glow faded from its surface, leaving only ordinary metal in, the starlight. Junho looked down at the unconscious woman. He could leave her here and call the authorities in the morning. That would be the safe thing to do, the legal thing. The colonial authority had strict rules about contact with alien species. But looking at her pale face and listening to her weak breathing, Junho couldn't bring himself to leave her alone in the cold field. She was hurt and far from home, wherever home might be. She needed help, and he was the only one here to give it. Junho made his second decision of the night. He carefully lifted the alien woman in his arms and began the long walk back to his house. Tomorrow he would figure out what to do next. Tonight, he would simply try to keep her alive. As he walked through the corn toward the warm lights of his home, Junho had no idea that he was carrying the future in his arms. 3 days passed before the alien woman woke up. During those days, Junho barely left her side. He had moved her to his own bedroom, the only room in the house with good lighting and space to work. He slept on the old couch in the living room, checking on her every few hours. Nari was fascinated by their mysterious guest. She would peek around the doorway whenever her father was changing bandages or checking the woman's broken arm. The alien's skin was the color of winter sky, and her silver hair seemed to glow even in the dim room. "Is she going to be okay, Dad?" Nari whispered on the second day. "I think so," Junho replied, though he wasn't really sure. He had done his best with the medical supplies, but alien biology was completely unknown to him. She just needs time to heal. On the third morning, Junho was sitting beside the bed when the woman's large eyes slowly opened. They were the color of deep ocean water, with flecks of silver that caught the light. She looked around the room with confusion, then focused on Junho's face. She tried to speak, but only strange musical sounds came out. Then she touched something on her neck, a small device that had been damaged in the crash. More musical sounds, but this time Junho could hear broken words mixed in. "Where am safe?" The words were choppy, like the translator was having trouble working. "You're safe," Junho said slowly and clearly. "My name is Junho. You crashed in my field. You were hurt." The woman tried to sit up but winced in pain from her broken arm. Junho gently helped her lean against the pillows. She looked around the simple bedroom, taking in the plain wooden furniture and faded curtains. "This is your home?" she asked. Her translator was working better now, though her voice still had a musical quality that was nothing like human speech. "Yes. You've been unconscious for 3 days. How do you feel? She considered this question carefully. Weak. Confused. My arm hurts. She looked at the splint Junho had made from farm supplies. You did this? I used to be a medic in the army. It's not perfect, but it should heal properly. The woman stared at him for a long moment. You are human. Yes. And you helped me. Even though I am... She searched for words. Not your kind. You were hurt, Junho said simply. It was the right thing to do. This seemed to puzzle her greatly. She was quiet for several minutes, just watching his face as if trying to solve a difficult problem. Over the next few days, the woman began to recover her strength. She told Junho her name was Tarix, though she didn't explain much about where she came from or why her ship had crashed. Junho didn't push for answers. He figured she would talk when she was ready. Tarix was amazed by everything in the human household. She watched Junho cook breakfast with the fascination of someone seeing magic. When he showed her how the coffee maker worked, she studied it like it was ancient alien technology. On my world, machines do all the food preparation, she explained. I have never seen someone cook with their own hands. Don't you ever want to make something yourself? Junho asked. Tarix thought about this. I never considered it. People of my position do not usually perform such tasks. Nari was less shy around Tarix once the alien woman was awake and moving around. She would sit on the floor near Tarix's chair and show her homework or drawings. Tarix seemed genuinely interested in everything Nari did, asking questions about human writing and mathematics. Your symbols are so simple, Tarix said one afternoon, watching Nari practice her letters. But they carry so much meaning. Can you write in your language? Nari asked. Tarix smiled, the first real smile Junho had seen from her. She pulled out a device from her pocket, one of the few things that had survived the crash. She touched it, and symbols appeared in the air above it, glowing softly blue. Nari gasped in delight. It's like magic. Not magic, just technology. But Tarix seemed pleased by Nari's reaction. She made the symbols dance in the air, forming pictures and patterns that told stories without words. For the next hour, Tarix showed Nari images of distant worlds, cities that floated in clouds, oceans filled with creatures that sang to the moons, forests where the trees grew upside down, their roots reaching toward the sky. Junho watched from the kitchen doorway, amazed at how patient Tarix was with his daughter. On her world, she had said, people of her position didn't do things like cooking or manual work, but she was treating an 8-year-old human child like the most important person in the universe. As winter settled over the farm, Tarix began to help with daily tasks. At first, she just watched Junho work, asking questions about everything. Why did he check the animals twice a day? How did he know when the equipment needed repair? Why did he read stories to Nari every night? My father never read to me, Tarix said one evening. They were sitting in the living room after dinner, Nari asleep against Tarix's good shoulder, while Junho read from an old book of fairy tales. Not ever? Junho asked quietly. Children of noble families have servants for such things. Tutors for education, caretakers for daily needs, parents are for formal occasions and political training. Junho looked down at his daughter, sleeping, peacefully. That sounds lonely. I thought it was normal, Tarix said. But watching you with Nari, I see there might be another way. By the end of winter, Tarix was helping with many household tasks. Her broken arm had healed completely, and she was stronger than she looked. She learned to cook simple meals, though she often added strange spices from plants she recognized outside. She was remarkably good at fixing broken things. Her people had a natural understanding of how systems worked together, and she could repair farm equipment almost by instinct. Junho's old tractor had never run so smoothly, but more than that, she was becoming part of their daily routine. She helped Nari with homework, teaching her mathematics that were far beyond what human schools offered. She told stories every night, some from her device and others from memory. She even learned to braid Nari's hair in intricate patterns that looked like art. One snowy evening, as they sat by the fire, Terex asked a question that had been bothering her for weeks. Junho, why have you not contacted your authorities about me? Surely your government would want to know about my presence here. Junho was quiet for a moment. Do you want me to contact them? Terex hesitated. I am not sure. My own people believe I am dead. My family will have already redistributed my holdings and titles, and your authorities might decide I am dangerous. Are you dangerous? Terex looked at Nari, who was building a puzzle on the floor nearby. Not to you. Not to her. But my presence here violates many laws, both human and my own. Then we'll figure it out when we need to, Junho said. For now, you're safe here. You're part of our family. The word family seemed to hit Terex like a physical blow. She stared at him with those deep ocean eyes, and for a moment Junho thought she might cry. Family, she repeated softly, as if testing how the word felt. Outside, snow continued to fall on the quiet farm, covering the crash site where Terex's old life had ended and her new one had begun. Spring came early to New Busan that year. The snow melted quickly, revealing fresh green grass and the first tiny flowers of the season. Junho was happy to see winter end. It had been a good winter, warmer and more comfortable than he had expected. But spring meant work. Lots of work. He was planning the spring planting when Terex made a decision that surprised him completely. I want to help with the farm work, she announced one morning over breakfast. Junho looked up from his coffee. Terex, you don't have to do that. Farm work is hard and dirty. You're not used to it. That is exactly why I should learn, Terex replied. She had been practicing her human expressions, and now she gave him a look that reminded him of his late wife when she had made up her mind about something. I have been living here for months, eating your food and using your home. I want to contribute. Nari bounced excitedly in her chair. Can Terex help me plant my flower garden too? We'll see, Junho said, though he was already smiling. The truth was, he could use the help. The farm was bigger than one person could handle easily, and hiring workers cost money he didn't have. What Junho didn't know was that Terex had another reason for wanting to stay busy. 3 days earlier, her personal communicator had finally finished repairing itself. She had been able to send a signal to her people, letting them know she was alive. The response had been cold and formal. Her family assumed she had been captured and compromised by humans. They ordered her to return immediately for questioning and re-education. When she tried to explain that she had been rescued and cared for, they became even more suspicious. That night, alone in her room, Terex had made a choice that would have shocked her old self. She picked up the communicator and deliberately damaged it again, making sure it would never send another signal. She told herself it was because she wanted to study human farming methods. But deep down, she knew the real reason. For the first time in her 300 years of life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. The first day of farm work nearly killed her. Junho started her with simple tasks: checking the soil, clearing rocks from the fields, repairing fence posts. But even these easy jobs left Terex exhausted and sore. Her hands, soft from a lifetime of luxury, developed blisters within hours. Maybe this isn't such a good idea, Junho said gently as he helped her bandage her hands that evening. No, Terex said firmly. I want to learn. I need to learn. Why is this so important to you? Terex was quiet for a long moment. On my world, I commanded fleets of ships and ruled over millions of people. But I never actually did anything with my own hands. I never created anything, or fixed anything, or grew anything. I just gave orders and attended ceremonies. She looked out the window at the fields. green with new growth. Here, everything you do matters. When you plant seeds, food grows. When you fix a machine, it works. When you care for Nari, she becomes happier and smarter. Everything has purpose. Junho understood. You want to matter? Yes, I want to matter. So Tarex kept working, and slowly she got better at it. Her hands grew calloused but stronger. Her back stopped aching every morning. Most importantly, she began to understand the rhythm of farm life. She learned that crops needed different care at different times. Some plants liked lots of water, others preferred to be dry. Some grew better in full sun, others needed shade. It was like conducting an orchestra, Tarex thought, where every instrument had to play its part at exactly the right time. Tarex also discovered she had natural talents that helped with farming. Her people had excellent eyesight and could see problems with crops that humans might miss. She could spot diseased plants or pest damage from far away. Her steady hands were perfect for delicate tasks like grafting and seed selection, but her greatest contribution came from her knowledge of other worlds. She recognized several Earth plants that were similar to crops from her home planet. Using this knowledge, she helped Junho develop new growing techniques that increased their yields dramatically. "Look at this," Junho said one afternoon, examining a section of corn that Tarex had treated with techniques from her world. The plants were twice as tall as normal, with fuller ears and brighter green leaves. "This is amazing. How did you know to do this?" "On Villani Prime, we have plants very similar to your corn. The soil conditions are different, but the basic needs are the same." Tarex touched one of the tall plants gently. "Living things want to grow. Sometimes they just need the right encouragement." The success in the fields changed how the neighbors saw Tarex. At first, they had been curious about Junho's mysterious guest. Some had even been suspicious. But when word spread about the incredible harvests coming from the park farm, curiosity turned to respect. Old farmer Kim, who owned the land next to theirs, started coming by regularly to ask Tarex's advice about his own crops. Mrs. Lee from the general store began ordering special seeds that Tarex recommended. Even the local agricultural agent made several visits, fascinated by the new growing methods. "You're becoming famous," Junho teased one evening, as they walked through the fields together. "Is that good or bad?" Tarex asked. "Good, I think. People respect what you've done here. They see you as part of the community now." This made Tarex feel warm inside, a feeling she was still getting used to. On her home world, respect came from fear or political necessity. Here, people respected her because of the work she did and the help she gave. But the best part of spring was watching Nari discover the world through Tarex's eyes. The alien woman had a way of making everything seem magical and new. When they planted Nari's flower garden, Tarex told stories about similar flowers on distant worlds. She showed Nari how to listen to plants, how to tell if they were happy or stressed just by the way they moved in the wind. "Plants are like people," Tarex explained as they watered the young seedlings. "They have feelings and needs. If you pay attention, they will tell you what they want." "Do they have friends too?" Nari asked. "Oh yes. Some plants grow better when they are near certain other plants. They help each other, share nutrients through their roots, warn each other about dangers. They take care of their friends, just like people do." Nari thought about this seriously. "Like how you take care of me and Dad?" Tarex felt that warm feeling again, stronger this time. "Yes, little one, just like that." As spring turned toward summer, their small family settled into comfortable routines. Junho handled the heavy machinery and business side of farming. Tarex managed the more delicate crops and continued to amaze everyone with her innovations. Nari helped where she could and learned from both of them. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch and watch the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. Tarex would point out her home star, just barely visible in the growing darkness. but she no longer looked at it with longing. "Do you ever miss it?" Junho asked one night. "Your old life?" Tarex considered the question carefully. "I miss some things. The beauty of my world. The knowledge in our great libraries. The music of my people. But I do not miss being alone in the middle of millions of subjects who feared me more than they loved me." She looked at Nari, asleep between them on the porch. "Swing. Here, I matter to two people completely. There, I mattered to millions of people not at all." Junho reached over and squeezed her hand. Her skin was no longer soft and pale, but tanned and strong from months of honest work. "You matter to us." As the stars came out above their peaceful farm, Tarex realized she had found something she never knew she was looking for. She had found home. Summer arrived with perfect weather and perfect happiness. The farm had never looked better. The crops grew tall and strong under Tarex's careful attention. The vegetable garden overflowed with food. Even the old apple trees produced more fruit than Junho had ever seen. Tarex had changed too. Her pale blue skin had darkened to a deeper shade from working in the sun. Her hands were strong and confident now. She moved through the farm like she had been born there, knowing exactly what each plant needed and when. But the biggest change was in how she acted around Nari and Junho. The formal distance of her noble upbringing had melted away completely. She laughed at Junho's terrible jokes. She sang silly songs while they worked. She hugged Nari freely and often. "You're different now," Nari said one morning as Tarex braided her hair before school. "You smile more." "Do I?" Tarex asked, though she already knew the answer. "How was I before?" "Sad. Not outside sad, but inside sad. Like you were carrying something heavy all the time." Tarex finished the braid and turned Nari around to face her. "You are very wise for 8 years old. Mom used to say that too. Dad says I get it from her." This was the first time Nari had mentioned her mother to Tarex directly. The alien woman felt honored that the child trusted her enough to share such memories. "Tell me about your mother," Tarex said gently. "She was really smart, like you. And she made the best pancakes in the whole colony. Dad tries, but they're always too thick." Nari giggled. "She used to say that taking care of people was the most important job in the universe." "She sounds wonderful." "She was. I think she would have liked you." Tarex felt tears forming in her eyes. On her world, crying was considered weak and shameful. Here, it just meant you cared about something. "I think I would have liked her too," Tarex said softly. That afternoon brought the incident that would change everything. Nari was playing in the big oak tree behind the house, while Tarex and Junho worked in the nearby fields. It was her favorite climbing tree with strong branches perfect for a small girl to explore. She had climbed it hundreds of times before, but this time, as she reached for a branch that looked sturdy, the wood cracked under her weight. Tarex heard the sharp crack, followed by Nari's scream. She dropped her tools and ran faster than she had ever run in her life. She found Nari on the ground beneath the tree, crying and holding her knees. The little girl had scraped both knees badly in the fall. The skin was torn and bleeding, with dirt and bark mixed into the wounds. It looked painful and messy, but not serious. "Let me see, little one," Tarex said, kneeling beside Nari in the grass. Her voice was calm and gentle, even though her heart was racing with worry. Nari was crying hard, the way children do when they are scared and hurt. "It hurts, Tarex. It hurts a lot." "I know it does. But you are going to be fine. I promise." Tarex carefully examined the scrapes. "These are not deep cuts. They will heal quickly." Junho came running when he heard the crying, but stopped when he saw Tarex already taking care of Nari. He watched as the alien woman gently cleaned the wounds with water from her bottle, talking softly to calm the frightened child. "On my world, we have a song for healing," Tarex said as she worked. "Would you like to hear it?" Nari nodded, still sniffling. Terex began to hum a melody unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It was beautiful and strange, with notes that seemed to float in the air like silver bells. As she hummed, she carefully cleaned each scrape, removing every piece of dirt and debris. The song worked like magic. Nari's crying gradually stopped, replaced by wonder at the beautiful music. Even Junho found himself feeling calmer just listening to it. "There," Tarek said as she applied bandages to both knees. "All clean and protected. The healing song will help them get better faster." "Really?" Nari asked, wiping her eyes. "Really, but you have to be careful for a few days while they heal. No running or jumping until the bandages come off." "Will you sing the healing song again if I have bad dreams tonight?" "Of course I will. I will sing it as many times as you need." Terex helped Nari stand up and walk to the house. The little girl limped a bit, but she was smiling again. Junho followed behind them, watching Tarek support his daughter with infinite patience and care. That evening, after Nari had gone to bed, Junho and Tarek sat on the front porch like they did every night. But tonight felt different somehow, more important. "Thank you," Junho said quietly, "for taking care of her today. You were perfect with her." "She is precious to me," Tarek replied. "I would do anything to keep her safe and happy." "I can see that. She loves you, you know. Really loves you. I love her too. And you." Tarek said the words simply, without embarrassment or hesitation. "I have never had a family before. I did not know it could feel like this." Junho was quiet for a long moment. "What will happen when your people find you? Because they will find you eventually." Tarek had been dreading this conversation for weeks. "I do not know. My family probably believes I am dead. They may have already chosen someone else to take my place. But if they haven't, then they will expect me to return and resume my duties. Marriage to someone politically useful, ceremonial appearances, military commands." She shuddered at the thought. "A life of loneliness surrounded by people who fear me. What do you want to do?" Tarek looked out at the farm that had become her whole world, the fields she had helped plant and tend, the house where she had learned what home really meant, the room where a little girl slept peacefully, trusting that Tarek would always be there to sing healing songs and tend to scraped knees. "I want to stay here," she said firmly. "I want to keep taking care of you and Nari. I want to watch her grow up and learn and become the amazing person I know she will be. I want to keep working beside you in the fields. I want to keep being part of this family. Even if it means giving up your old life completely, your titles, your wealth, your position. Junho, I ruled over millions of people, but I was never as important to anyone as I am to Nari when she scrapes her knees. I commanded fleets of starships, but I was never as useful as I am when I help you repair a broken fence. I had palaces and servants and more wealth than I could spend in a lifetime, but I was never as rich as I am now." She reached over and took his hand. "I have found my home. I have found my family. I have found my purpose. Nothing else matters." Junho squeezed her hand gently. In the distance, they could hear the soft sound of Nari talking in her sleep, probably dreaming of healing, songs and alien worlds. "Then we'll figure out how to keep you here," he said, "whatever it takes." Above them, the stars shone down on a farm where 3 beings from different worlds had become one family. And in the house, a little girl slept with clean bandages on, her knees, knowing that someone who loved her would always be there to make the hurt go away. The ships came on a quiet morning in late summer. Junho was fixing a broken gate when he saw the shadows pass overhead. 3 vessels, sleek and silver like Tarex's crashed shuttle, but much larger. They moved without sound, like ghosts against the blue sky. His blood turned cold. He had always known this day would come, but he had hoped for more time. "Tarex!" he called, running toward the house. "Tarix! They're here!" She was in the kitchen, helping Nari pack her school lunch. When she heard Junho's voice, her face went pale. She looked out the window and saw the ships circling their farm like hunting birds. "Nari, go to your room," Tarek said quietly. "Stay there until we come get you." "What's happening?" Nari asked, frightened by the serious expressions on both adults' faces. "Just some visitors, little one. Everything will be fine." Tarek hugged her quickly. "Go now." Nari ran upstairs, but she peeked out her bedroom window to watch the strange ships land in their cornfield. The same field where Tarek had crashed almost a year ago. The largest ship settled to the ground with barely a whisper. A door opened in its smooth side, and figures began to emerge. They looked like Tarek's, but taller, and wearing clothes that seemed to be made of light itself. Their movements were graceful but cold, like dancers made of ice. The leader was clearly someone important. He wore robes that shifted color as he moved, and a crown-like device floated above his head. When he saw Tarek's standing in the farmyard, his face showed disgust. "Sister," he said, his voice carrying easily across the distance. "Look at yourself. Look what you have become." Tarek's walked forward to meet them, Junho beside her. She wore simple farm clothes, her hands dirty from morning work. Her silver hair was tied back in a practical braid. She looked nothing like the noble lady she had once been. "Hello, Valeth," she said calmly. "You look well." "Do not mock me with pleasantries," her brother replied. "Do you have any idea what shame you have brought to our family? Missing for a year, presumed dead, while you play house with these primitives?" "I was not playing. I was living." More figures emerged from the ships. Some wore military uniforms. Others carried devices that hummed with energy. But the ones that worried Junho most were the humans in colonial authority uniforms. They had brought backup from his own government. A colonial officer stepped forward, checking a device in his hand. "Park Junho, you are under arrest for harboring an undocumented alien in violation of Colonial Statute 47B. You will come with us immediately." "He did nothing wrong," Tarek said, moving to stand between Junho and the officers. "I was injured. He saved my life." "That's not how our records show it," the officer replied. "Our investigation indicates you have been here for almost a year without reporting to authorities. That's a serious crime." Valeth laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Investigation. How thorough of you. But it does not matter. My sister will lie. Return with us now, and your primitive justice system can do what it wishes with her keeper." "I am not returning," Tarek said firmly. "I renounce my titles and my place in our family. I claim the right of exile." This caused an uproar among the alien delegation. Valeth's face darkened with rage. "You cannot claim exile. You are needed at home. Our father is ill, and the succession must be secured. Then choose another heir. I am no longer part of that world." "You will come willingly, or we will take you by force," Valeth said. "And if these humans try to interfere, they will be eliminated as threats to galactic security." The colonial officers looked uncomfortable at this threat, but they didn't move to stop it. Junho realized with growing anger that his own government was going to let this happen. They were afraid of the aliens and their advanced technology. "You cannot take her against her will," Junho said, stepping forward. "She has rights." "Rights?" Valeth laughed again. "She is nobility of the ethereal coalition. She has duties that outweigh any primitive concept of individual rights. And you, human, have no say in our family matters. She is part of my family." "Now," Junho replied. "That gives me every right to protect her." Valeth's expression turned ugly. "Family? With a lower life form? How far you have fallen, sister." He gestured to his soldiers. "Take her. And if the human resists, kill him." The soldiers began to move forward, energy weapons charging with ominous hums. The colonial officers stepped back, clearly unwilling to get involved in an armed confrontation. But Valeth had made a crucial error. He had threatened Junho's life in front of Terex, and he had called the man she loved a lower life form. Terex's calm mask finally cracked. "Stop," she said, and her voice carried a note of command that made everyone freeze. "You will not harm him. You will not take me. And you will leave this place immediately. You forget yourself, sister. You have no authority here. Don't I?" Terex pulled a small device from her pocket, one that Junho had never seen before. "I may have renounced my titles, but I have not forgotten my training, nor have I forgotten the security codes for Coalition vessels." She activated the device, and immediately alarms began wailing from all 3 ships. The soldiers' weapons powered down automatically, and several systems aboard the vessels shut down entirely. "Impossible," Valeth breathed. "Those codes change daily." "Not the emergency override codes," Terex replied. "The ones that only family members know. The ones Father made us memorize as children in case of capture or coercion." She smiled coldly. "I may be in exile, but I am still a daughter of House Villani." But Valeth was not finished. "You think you are clever? Fine. We cannot take you by force today. But what about the child?" Junho felt ice in his veins. "What about her? The human child has been exposed to Coalition technology and classified information for months. She represents a security risk. Coalition law requires that such risks be eliminated or contained." Terex went very still. "You would threaten a child?" "I would do my duty, unlike some members of our family." That was when Junho realized that this alien prince had never faced a truly angry human before. Valeth had spent his life dealing with the cold politics of space nobility. He had no understanding of what a simple human father would do to protect his child. "You made a mistake," Junho said quietly. "2 mistakes, actually." "Oh? And what would those be? Primitive?" "First, you threatened my daughter." Junho's voice was getting quieter and more dangerous. "Second, you assumed I was just a farmer." Junho reached into his jacket and pulled out a device that made the colonial officers curse and step back. It was military identification, but not from the local colonial forces. It showed service in the border wars, commendations for special operations, and a rank that meant he had been much more than a simple soldier. "I am Lieutenant Colonel Park Junho, retired Special Forces, decorated veteran of the Epsilon campaign," he said formally. "This farm sits on land granted to me by the colonial military for distinguished service. And under colonial military code, I have the right to defend my family and property against any threat, foreign or domestic." He pressed another button on his device. Around the farm, hidden systems began to activate. Defense turrets rose from concealed positions. Shield generators hummed to life. Warning lights flashed from dozens of sensors. "This isn't just a farm," Junho continued. "It's a retired military installation complete with defensive systems and emergency protocols. I've been sending regular security reports to Colonial Command for the past year, including detailed information about our alien guest and her technology." The colonial officers were now looking very interested indeed. One of them spoke into his communicator, clearly receiving new orders. "Sir," the lead officer said to Valeth, "I'm afraid we need to reassess this situation. If Lady Terex has been cooperating with our intelligence services, then her status here may be entirely legal." Valeth looked around at the defensive systems, now surrounding his forces, at the colonial officers who were no longer supporting him, and at his sister who stood protectively beside the human farmer who was clearly much more than he appeared. "This is not over," he said finally. "The Coalition will not forget this insult." "Neither will I," Terex replied. "Now leave my home." The alien ships lifted off without ceremony, disappearing into the afternoon sky. The colonial officers departed as well, but not before shaking Junho's hand and assuring him that Lady Tarex's cooperation with human authorities had been duly noted and appreciated. When everyone was gone, Junho and Tarex sat on their porch steps, exhausted by the confrontation. Nari came running from the house and threw herself into both their arms. "Are you staying?" she asked Tarex urgently. "Are we still a family?" "Yes, little one," Tarex said, holding her tight. "We are still a family, and I am never leaving again." As the sun set over their peaceful farm, the three of them sat together and watched the stars come out. Somewhere among those stars was Tarex's old world, her old life, her old family. But here on this small farm, on a human colony world, she had found something infinitely more precious. She had found home. 6 months after the confrontation with her brother, Tarex stood in her kitchen making breakfast for her family. The simple act still filled her with quiet joy. On her home world, food had always appeared on golden plates, prepared by unseen servants. Here she cracked eggs and flipped pancakes with her own hands, listening to Nari chatter about her school project. And then Mrs. Chen said my report on alien farming was the best she had ever read, Nari said proudly. She wants me to present it to the whole school next week. "That's wonderful, little one," Tarex said, placing a plate of pancakes in front of the girl. "What will you tell them?" "About how you taught us that plants are like people, and how they help each other grow, and about the singing to make them healthy. Oh, and about the special fertilizer you made from moonflowers." Junho walked into the kitchen, holding a message pad that had just arrived by courier. His expression was serious but not worried. Over the months, Tarex had learned to read his moods perfectly. "What is it?" she asked, setting down his coffee cup. "Message from Colonial Command. They want to meet with us next week." Tarex felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. Even though her status had been cleared, official meetings still made her nervous. Did they say why? Something about a new initiative. They want your help with something called the Cultural Exchange Program. 3 days later, they sat in a conference room at the Colonial Administration Building in New Seoul, the planet's capital city. Across from them sat Director Park, a stern woman in a crisp uniform, and Dr. Kim, a scientist who seemed very excited about something. "Lady Tarex," Director Park began, "your reports over the past year have been invaluable to our understanding of ethereal technology and culture. Your insights have helped us avoid several diplomatic mistakes that could have led to serious conflicts." "I am glad to have been helpful," Tarex replied carefully. Dr. Kim leaned forward eagerly. "But that's not why we asked you here. We have a much bigger opportunity. The Ethereal Coalition has contacted us directly. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations." Junho raised an eyebrow. "After what happened with her brother?" "Because of what happened with her brother," Director Park corrected. "It seems that Lady Tarex's independence has impressed certain factions within the coalition. They see her as proof that ethereals and humans can work together successfully." "They want me to be an ambassador?" Tarex asked, confused. "Not exactly. They want to create a new position, Cultural Liaison Officer, someone who understands both species and can help bridge the gaps between our peoples." Dr. Kim pulled out a data pad. "The position would be based here on New Busan, working with both governments to establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation." Tarex was quiet for a long moment. "And my family? What would happen to them?" "That's the best part," Director Park said with a rare smile. The position comes with full diplomatic immunity for you and your immediate family. Your residence would become an official embassy. Mr. Park's military record and his experience with you would make him perfect as head of security for the embassy. What about Nari? Junho asked. She would have access to the best education we can provide, including advanced courses in xenobiology and interspecies communication. With her unique background, she could become one of the most important diplomatic minds of her generation. Terex looked at Junho, then at the documents on the table. It was everything she had hoped for but never dared to ask. Official recognition of her new life, protection for her family, and meaningful work that would help both her peoples. When would this begin? She asked. Immediately. The first delegation from the coalition arrives next month. 1 month later, their farm looked very different. The old farmhouse had been expanded into a proper embassy building, though Terex had insisted on keeping the original structure intact. New buildings housed offices, meeting rooms, and guest quarters for visiting diplomats. But the heart of the place remained the same. The fields still grew crops, now tended by a combination of human farmers and ethereal agricultural specialists. The vegetable garden still bloomed beside the house. And every evening, the family still sat on their porch to watch the sunset. Nervous about tomorrow? Junho asked as they settled into their usual chairs. The first official diplomatic meeting was scheduled for the next morning. A little, Terex admitted. It has been a long time since I spoke formally with my own people. You'll be fine, Nari said confidently. She was 9 now, taller and more serious than before, but still the same. Curious child who had been fascinated by a crashed alien in their cornfield. You're the smartest person I know. And the kindest, Junho added. Terex smiled, feeling the familiar warmth that these two people always brought to her heart. I never imagined this when I crashed in your field. What did you imagine? Nari asked. Honestly? I thought I would die there. I had given up hope completely. Terex looked out at the fields where her old life had ended and her new one began. I thought I was alone in the universe. You're not alone anymore, Nari said, taking her hand. No, Terex agreed. I am not alone anymore. The next morning brought visitors from across the galaxy. Ethereal delegates arrived in their gleaming ships, while human officials came in ground vehicles. The meeting room filled with beings of different species, all gathered to discuss trade and cooperation and the future of their worlds. But the real success happened in the small moments. When Terex introduced human children to ethereal art forms, when she helped a homesick coalition engineer understand human humor, when she mediated a dispute between species by remembering something Nari had said about plants helping each other grow. At lunch, she served food she had cooked herself, a mixture of human and ethereal dishes that surprised everyone with how well they worked together. The formal delegates found themselves relaxing, talking about their families and their hopes for the future. This is remarkable, said Ambassador Theron, the lead ethereal delegate. I have never seen such natural diplomacy. You make it look effortless. It's not effortless, Terex replied. It's just love. Love? Love for both my peoples. Love for my family. Love for the idea that different beings can choose to care for each other instead of fearing each other. She gestured toward the window, where Nari was showing a group of young ethereal diplomats how to plant seeds in the embassy garden. Look at them. They don't see aliens. They just see friends they haven't met yet. That evening, after all the Delegates had returned to their ships and hotels. The family gathered on their porch as always. But tonight, they weren't alone. Dr. Kim had stayed for dinner, along with Ambassador Theron and two young human diplomats who were eager to learn from Tarex's example. "Tell us about your first day here," one of the young diplomats asked. "When you crashed," Tarex looked at Junho, who nodded encouragingly. She had told this story many times now, but it never got old. "I was broken," she began. "Not just my ship, but my spirit. I had lost everything I thought mattered, but a human farmer found me in his field, and instead of turning me away or calling for help, he carried me to his home." She smiled at the memory. "He didn't know who I was or where I came from. He just knew I was hurt and needed help. That simple act of kindness changed everything." "But surely the real change came later," Ambassador Theron said. "When you learned about human culture and technology." "No," Tarex said firmly. "The real change came the first time Nari scraped her knees, and I was the one who cleaned the wounds and sang her the healing song. That was when I stopped being a refugee and became a mother." She looked around at all the faces watching her, human and ethereal alike. "That's what I hope to teach both our peoples, that the greatest strength isn't in our weapons or our ships or our technology. It's in our willingness to care for each other, especially when that caring crosses the boundaries of species and culture." As the stars came out above the embassy, that had once been a simple farm, Tarex thought about how far they had all come. She was no longer Lady Tarex of House Villani, powerful and alone. She was no longer a crashed refugee dependent on the kindness of strangers. She was Tarex Park, wife and mother and diplomat, tending to scraped knees and growing gardens and building bridges between worlds. She had found her place in the universe, and it was exactly where she belonged. The next morning would bring new challenges, new visitors, new opportunities to bring different peoples together. But tonight, she was simply a mother sitting on her porch with her family, watching their daughter chase fireflies under alien stars, and knowing that home was not a place but the people who loved you enough to bandage your wounds and sing you healing songs. In the distance, ships from a dozen worlds waited in orbit, their crews eager to learn what this small farm had taught about the power of simple human kindness. And in the embassy garden, plants from many worlds grew side by side, proving that with enough care and attention, anything could flourish. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but the most important discoveries happened in quiet moments, when different beings chose to become family and tend to each other's hurts with gentle hands and open hearts.